From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris here with you on a Tuesday. And we have, as always, a good show on tap for you today. You're as always going to be able to join in the conversation. We'll get the number up there in a moment if you'd like to join. What we're going to talk about this morning are convictions, individuals wrongfully convicted, and how it is sometimes those problems and mistakes are corrected. Here in Davidson County, we have a conviction review unit. District Attorney General Glenn Funk has this unit in place to look at cases that, and there's several to have reviewed, that go back years potentially, and see if there are individuals who are wrongly convicted, if there is evidence that has surfaced that might clear someone and try to right the wrong. And there have been some high-profile cases just this year that we've talked about. Joseph Webster and a first-degree murder case, Joyce Watkins and Charlie Dunn, which is a more recent one, and we're going to tell you more about that because it's also had some national play on CBS News, and just what it takes to get this type of review done and the like. So we'll talk about these cases. We can take some of your phone calls with who heads up the conviction review unit in the district attorney's office, and that would be Sunny Eaton, who's joining us on Zoom. Good morning to you, Sunny. Thanks for joining us. Uh-oh. Did we just lose the audio again, Mary Elena? Okay, well, I can't hear her in here again, so that's okay. Can you hear us again? Say hello.
I can hear you fine.
There you go. Now it's up. I don't know why it keeps going in and out, but I've got you. Hey, listen, before we get into some of the cases and the details, you know, I know prosecutors' offices, the job there is to put people away when they have evidence to convict someone rightfully. But it's interesting, you know, a district attorney's office has a conviction review unit, which more or less acknowledges the fact that not just here in Davidson County, but anywhere in the country, sometimes people are wrongfully convicted, not intentionally, but because of the circumstances at the time. Is that the way you view it?
I view conviction review as essential to a district attorney's office. I think more and more DA's offices nationwide are starting to understand that our duty to pursue justice is ongoing, and that we have tools and information that may not be available to a defendant who's convicted. So this work seems to be a natural part of our process.
It really does, and you're right. It seems like this is something they're acknowledging more. Look, over the years, as I've covered cases and reviews, not reviews, but appeals, I mean, it sometimes seems like after a court case happens, there's a conviction, a sentencing, and someone's put away. It's like, and I'm not talking about currently now, but in the past, in general, sometimes prosecutors were loath to go back and just acknowledge that maybe a mistake was made, or that maybe, and I've always felt that the very best prosecutors are one, as you said, that are just interested in justice. And if a mistake was made, even by them, they need to go back and correct it. But there sometimes is an attitude, you know, of no. I mean, it's over and done with.
Right. You know, that attitude doesn't make any sense to me when we might have innocent people in prison. I think that people who think that this work is counterintuitive to what a DA's office doesn't understand a couple of things. And the first one being that our duty is always to victims. That's our first duty as a district attorney's office. But that duty also means getting the right perpetrator. And if we've convicted the wrong person, then we have not served that victim. And further, if we've got an innocent person in prison, then we have created a new victim. We've done that, and we have a duty to that person too.
Now, that to me makes absolutely perfect sense. And like you said, you got the wrong person, and that means the actual killer or whoever the criminal is still out there walking around, and you want to get them as well. Listen, we're going to get into more of the details about your office and some of these cases, but we thought in this first segment, we've got a 4-minute segment that ran on the CBS Evening News. CBS covered it nationally on the Joyce Watkins case, and I thought we would play that now for our viewers, just to give them a little example of one of these types of cases we're talking about. And then we'll come back and we'll spend the rest of the show talking about that and more as we take phone calls. So, Sunny, sit back. You've probably seen it already. Many of our viewers may have, may not. Let's watch it again right now. We'll play that piece.
My family is my life. My niece is my nephew. That's my life. Late on the night of June 26, 1987, Joyce Watkins drove from her home in Tennessee to pick up her great niece, who had been staying with a relative in Kentucky for 2 months. Almost immediately, Watkins could tell something was wrong and took the child in the morning to the emergency room. The 4-year-old, seen here as she was transferred to Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville, was suffering from head and vaginal injuries and died a day later.
Joyce, did it ever occur to you at that moment that you would be accused of her death?
No.
But they questioned you.
Yes. They asked me what happened to her. I told them I didn't know. I couldn't tell them something that I didn't know, because I don't know.
Despite evidence that the child had been injured while in Kentucky, Watkins and her boyfriend Charlie Dunn became suspects after an assistant medical examiner, visually observing the child's bruises, mistakenly determined that she had been injured during the 9 hours she was with the couple.
Everybody just got laser focused on Joyce and Charlie.
Jason Gitzner is a senior attorney with the Tennessee Innocence Project.
It didn't matter that they cooperated with the investigation, that they kept meeting with the police over and over again without a lawyer and saying, we didn't do this. Come take whatever evidence you want.
Watkins and Dunn were both convicted and sent to prison for life.
It took everything away from us. It took us from our families, him from his kids, took us from everything we worked for.
Over the years, they tried and failed to get their convictions overturned. In 2015, while still incarcerated, Charlie Dunn died of throat cancer. Later that year, after 27 years in prison, Watkins was released on parole.
What was your mission at that point?
To prove our innocence.
Last summer, the Conviction Review Unit of the Davidson County District Attorney's Office released a report finding that the methods used by the medical examiner have been largely discredited and determined that Joyce Watkins and Charlie Dunn are actually innocent.
When you heard at the hearing last December just how wrong her medical evidence was in 1987 and that it was the main evidence against you and Charlie, how did you feel about that?
Broken, real heartbroken. Because it's something that should have never happened. That was when I was incarcerated.
It took 35 years, and the unwavering faith of Joyce Watkins, now 74 years old. But in January of this year, the court finally got it right.
Ms. Watkins, this charge against you is dismissed. And to the family of Charlie Dunn, the charge against Charlie Dunn is dismissed.
It was a happy day. It was a happy day.
But bittersweet, too.
You never got to grieve either. You never had time to grieve the loss of Brandy.
No, I haven't. But I'm going to go and visit her grave in a few months.
Both Joyce Watkins and Charlie Dunn lost everything they had. Under Tennessee law, Joyce has to first apply for and then get a pardon from the governor to be eligible for any compensation. And there's likely nothing for the family of Charlie Dunn. Erin Moriarty, CBS News, New York.
Whew, Sunny, I mean, every time I see that and review that, it makes me tear up. I mean, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. When you looked at this case, I mean, I guess you saw the same thing that was just reported there. Talk a bit about that and how this played out.
You know, throughout this case, a lot of tears were shed by our whole team. This is a tragedy on all ends. You know, the thing about these cases is they're not a made-for-TV movie. I mean, it's reality, and that means there's not a happy ending. There's just not. And I think that the best that we can do is try to make the right thing happen at the time that we learn something else needs to happen. This case came to us through the Tennessee Innocence Project. They filed an application. They had already done a very thorough investigation. Now, as a conviction review unit, which is an internal arm of the district attorney's office, and I want people to understand that if it's not internal, it's not conviction review. That's a very important aspect of what we're doing. They submitted their investigation and their application to us. We have a very robust partnership with the Tennessee Innocence Project. And then what happens is we reinvestigate the case, and we reinvestigate everything. We go through everything that they have brought to us, and then we conduct our own investigation, because we often have access to documents and witnesses, information that an outside entity like the Innocence Project may not have. And that was certainly the case here. We managed to find information that no one had found in decades and get witnesses to talk to us that no one else would talk to. And through that investigation and a lot of late nights and long weekends, our team very quickly determined that these two people were wrongfully convicted.
As we go to the break, just with regard to that, and they were cleared, what do we think really happened to the little girl? Was it, who did it?
So I have to be careful about that, because this is a pending investigation still. And this often happens with conviction review cases, is not only are we aiming to find out if we've convicted the right people, but central to our review is always the question of what happened to this victim. In this case, we uncovered quite a bit of information that we have now sat down and given to the appropriate jurisdiction, and they are conducting an investigation.
Okay, because yeah, against that backdrop, this poor couple ended up serving so much time, and the man died behind bars. And all this time, whoever was responsible has been free, and it just burns me. All right, listen, we'll take a break, and we'll talk more about that, talk more about the general work you do, and take some phone calls that are coming in as well after we take this break. Back with more and Sunny Eaton right after this.